You're nothing but a freeloader squatting in our house. Monica's voice sliced through the air, sharp and venomous as she hauled her sleek Louis Vuitton suitcase toward the front door. Maybe by the time we're back, you'll have scraped together enough to find your own place. My father, Richard, gave a curt nod, avoiding my gaze like I was a stranger. We've been more than generous letting you crash here rent-free. Most parents would have booted their grown kids out years ago. I stood rooted in the kitchen doorway, my coffee going cold in my shaky grip. This is my house, I said, voice barely above a whisper. Mom left it to me. You know that. Monica rolled her eyes with theatrical flair. Like I'd just spouted some fairy tale. Oh, here we go with that delusion again. Tell her, Richard. My father's jaw clenched. Your mother wanted us to live here as a family. Lauren, not for you to play queen of the castle. Legally, I'm still. Legally what, Dad? I cut in, finding a spark of steel I didn't know I had. He grabbed his suitcase handle, dodging the question. We're going to miss our flight. Sophie's already in the car. The door slammed shut behind them, leaving me alone in the cavernous silence of the Queen and Victorian my mother had breathed life into before cancer stole her away 5 years ago. I'm Lauren Harper, 24. And despite what my father and stepmother think, I'm the rightful owner of this house in suburban Philadelphia. My mom, Abigail Harper, made damn sure of that, locking the property in a trust with me as the beneficiary after she passed. All I want is simple respect for her wishes in recognition of what's mine. Standing in my way? My father, who's conveniently amnesia-stricken about the trust, and Monica, my stepmother of 3 years, who treats me like some unwanted tenant. Oh, and there's Sophie, my 16-year-old stepsister, who barely registers my existence. I took a steadying breath and drifted to the bay window, watching their car peel out of the driveway. They were off to the Bahamas for 10 days, a family vacation I'd been pointedly left out of. Sophie sat in the back, her face glowing from her phone screen, oblivious or indifferent. As they vanished around the corner, a familiar cocktail of hurt and fury churned in my chest. I'd put up with their snide remarks and cold shoulders for years, convincing myself it's what Mom would have wanted, keeping the family together. Then my phone pinged. An email from Monica to Dad, accidentally CC'd to me. Richard, I talked to Greg. He says once we're back, we can push to get Lauren out legally. He thinks her story about Abigail's wishes won't stick without the original trust papers. My stomach plummeted. Who the hell was Greg? And what did she mean about the original documents? My mother, Abigail, was a rock star architectural historian who turned crumbling relics into treasures. This house, built in 1887, was her masterpiece. She snagged it as a foreclosure when I was 7, pouring every ounce of her soul and her savings into its revival. My childhood was a symphony of Sanders, paint fumes, and her giddy rants about uncovering hidden gems like original crown molding. Dad? He never got it. An accountant to his core. He griped about the money and mess, calling it her overpriced obsession. Their marriage was a tightrope even before her diagnosis, held together mostly for me. When Mom realized the cancer was terminal, she didn't waste time. I was 19, a college sophomore chasing her footsteps in preservation studies. Between chemo drips, she met with lawyers, set up the trust, and drilled her vision into me. This house will be yours, she'd said, her frail fingers tracing the staircase's carved balusters. Your dad can stay as long as he needs. But it's yours. Promise me you'll keep it alive. I swore I would. What I didn't see coming was how fast Dad moved on. A year after her funeral, he met Monica at some work event. 6 months later, she and Sophie were in my house, lugging in tacky modern furniture that clashed with Mom's Victorian vibe and an attitude that screamed entitlement. At first, I bent over backwards to make it work, still grieving, still in school, clinging to any shred of family. Monica tossed me occasional fake smiles, but Sophie stayed glued to her phone or holed up in her room. Dad morphed after they arrived. Mom's antiques became that old crap, and he'd pushed to gut her restored rooms for something practical. When I'd fight back, citing Mom's wishes, he'd shut down. Your mother's gone, Lauren. The living come first. I graduated last year, landed a gig with a local preservation group, and could have bolted from my own place. So why stay in a house where I'm a ghost? Because this is Mom's legacy, her final gift. Walking away would have gutted her memory. So I swallowed the jabs, the exclusion, the slow erasure of my place here. Until that email. Now with them gone, I had 10 days to dig for answers. Who was Greg? And what was this about the trust papers? I started in Dad's office, once Mom's cozy library, now a sterile shrine to Monica's filing fetish. I felt like a thief in my own house as I rifled through his desk, pens, bills. A few family pics, minus me. The filing cabinet was next. In the bottom drawer behind neat labels, I found a fat envelope marked Harper House Legal. My pulse raced as I dumped it out. There it was, the trust Mom set up, naming me beneficiary, Dad as a lifetime tenant with strict rules. But there were new docs too, letters with Greg Dawson, a real estate lawyer, plotting to nullify the outdated trust and secure clear title. A sticky note in Dad's scrawl read, "Original trust docs in Abigail's lockbox. Lauren might have key." Ice flooded my veins. They wanted the originals to torch them. Without those, it'd be my word against Dad's. The papers painted a grim picture. Dad had been scheming with Greg for months, hunting loopholes to steal my inheritance. Monica was in deep, suggesting Mom's cancer meds clouded her judgment when she wrote the trust. The latest from Greg flipped reality on its head. Lauren's interference with Frank's quiet enjoyment breaches the trust. Me the villain? I slumped in the chair, numb. This wasn't forgetfulness. It was a calculated betrayal. Back in my room, I yanked Mom's fireproof box from the closet. Inside, the original trust and a sealed envelope labeled "in case of disputes." I tore it open. Mom's handwriting spilled out. "My darling Lauren, if you're reading this, Richard's forgotten his promises. I hoped he'd honor me, but I planned for this. Call Eliza Carter. She's the trust admin and can enforce it. The house is yours. Don't let them take it. Love, Mom." Tears stung as I traced her words. Even now she had my back. Next morning I dialed Eliza Carter. "I've been expecting your call, Lauren," her warm voice said. We met that afternoon in her downtown office. Eliza, a sharp-eyed woman in her 60s, pored over my docs. "Abigail was airtight with this trust. Richard can live there rent-free for life. If he respects your ownership. He's doing the opposite." I spilled everything. Dad's denial, Monica's hostility, the files I'd found. "He's breaching the terms," Eliza said, frowning. "Verbal abuse and exclusion violated too. Abigail built in safeguards." "Safeguards like what?" I asked. "I can terminate his tenancy if he's in major breach," she replied. Relief hit. But so did dread. Evicting Dad? That'd nuke what family I had left. "I don't want him out," I admitted. "Just to respect Mom's wishes." Eliza nodded. "Let's start with a letter reminding him of the terms, a legal nudge." She drafted it while I waited, a firm but fair warning. I left with a flicker of hope. Maybe Dad would back off once he saw his plan was toast. That night, my phone buzzed. A text from Monica. "We need to talk about your behavior while we're gone. Richard's furious. Expect changes when we're back." Attached. A photo of Dad's office, drawers ajar, papers askew. They'd rigged cameras. Then an email from Dad. "I'm disappointed in your snooping. It proves you're not mature enough to own a home. We're consulting our lawyer when we return." My gut twisted. I forwarded it all to Eliza. "This shifts things," she replied. "They're doubling down. We may need to enforce the trust fully." Then Greg Dawson emailed me. "Cease contact with my clients. We're preparing legal action over your baseless claims to 1847 Chestnut Avenue." Hope drained away. My soft approach had backfired. They were coming harder now. "Mom," I whispered. "What do I do?" Eliza's next call was blunt. "They're gearing up fast. We need to file an emergency petition, enforce the trust, and get a restraining order to keep them out until a hearing." "A restraining order?" I balked. "It's extreme." "Not when they're this aggressive," she countered. "Filing now uses their absence to our advantage." I paced, torn. This was my family imploding. "Let me sleep on it," I said. Then a bank alert hit. Dad had wired money from our joint account, my money for bills, to Greg's firm. That did it. I called Eliza. "Let's do it." We moved fast. Eliza filed the petition. I documented the house, Mom's stained glass, her walnut banisters. 3 days before their return, Eliza called. The judge approved it. But there's more. Abigail's trust had a hidden clause. If Richard remarried, he had to buy you out or leave within a year. I froze. "He married Monica 3 years ago." "Exactly," Eliza said. He's been in breach for 2 years. And there's a letter Abigail left for this scenario. In her office, I read Mom's words. Lauren, if Richard's remarried and stayed, he's defied me. The house funds came from my grandmother's inheritance, meant for blood heirs. He has no claim. Eliza will help you take it back. You're stronger than you know. Love, Mom. I choked up. He's got nothing, Eliza said. We're ending his tenancy, multiple breaches, plus this. The restraining order locked them out. A hearing was set in 3 weeks. 2 days before they returned. Sophie called from the Bahamas. I overheard them, she whispered. They're planning to frame you, say you're unstable, plant something in your room. My blood ran cold. Thanks, Sophie. That took guts. It's true the house is yours, isn't it? She asked. Yeah, I said. I'm sorry they lied to you. She hung up and I told Eliza. We're barring them from entry, she said. Supervised pickup only. Dad called next, all fake charm. We want to apologize, talk it out when we're back. I played along, then told Eliza. They're setting a trap. We're ready, she said. On their return day, I watched from across the street. The sheriff served them. Eliza handed Mom over the inheritance letter. Dad crumpled. Monica raged. It wasn't triumph I felt, just closure. Weeks later, they moved out. Sophie started visiting, seeking refuge from their chaos. Dad tried a half-hearted reconciliation once, but the damage was done. I dove into restoring the 3rd floor. Honoring Mom's dream. She'd be proud, Eliza said. She was right. This house, my legacy, finally felt like mine.